Things are picking up fast as the Montreal Canadiens have been linked to multiple huge moves, including one NHL insider once again linking the Habs to Steven Stamkos, and a separate one suggesting another big trade with Nashville, but not for Stammer. But it doesn't end there, as a new name has popped up on NHL waivers today from Pittsburgh. A former first-round pick would be a fantastic fit in the Montreal lineup. That plus so much more coming up on this episode. And we're just going to start with a quote from Renaud Lavoie. And I think it's an educated guess maybe, but it feels like it very well could be true. Je pense qu'on n'est pas loin d'une transaction. I don't think we're far away from a trade, Jesse. And right now, trade talks have been going crazy. For Montreal especially, because in the midst of a 4-game losing streak with a bunch of major injuries to Laine, to Newhook, to even like Kirby, Dach, and Guhle, and all this, it's like, we need players. So naturally, you're like, okay, what kind of trades is Kent going to cook up? And there's guys whose names have been out there. The NHL trade market has gone crazy, from Xhekaj to Steven Stamkos to everyone in between. Would you agree here? Like, I can't disagree that I think a trade's probably coming sooner, at least some kind of move, especially when I'm looking at this roster, and for a team that wants to get back in the playoffs, I'm just saying, the sooner maybe the better, but I don't want to get in over my head just yet.
Wisely so, Josh. Again, like, injuries are going to factor into all of this. That being said, if there's one thing we know about Kent Hughes, like, he's the consummate deal maker. He's not pressured into deals. He does it on his own terms, whether that's acquiring players or like signing players to deals. Like, he has a number, he has a line in the sand of what he'll do and what he doesn't do. And that's why he's so respected by players. It's like, they know always where he stands. There's no kind of like ambiguity when it comes to Kent Hughes. One thing to be said, though, in all this is we know he is always looking to improve this team. He cares so much about the Montreal Canadiens. So for sure, he's looking at all possible ways to improve them because, I mean, like, I was vocal before the season even beginning that we needed a 2C. And, like, we got off to a good start, but the analytics were still showing, like, that depth scoring is still there. So I think Kent Hughes is very much aware that, some more scoring in the lineup is needed for sure, and that's definitely going to factor into all of this.
100%, and like, who knows who it'll be for, and again, we'll get into a couple of names out of Nashville in just a bit, but the first thing we got to talk about is that even if a trade is on the horizon, there's other ways to get players, and there was a lot of rumor smoke around John Beecher, who was placed on waivers yesterday, and he's a left-hand shot center who can play some PK, can win some faceoffs. He was claimed by the first team in priority. Calgary, it goes by reverse standings, right? Calgary's in last. They had first pick. They claimed him. So right now, there is a huge market for waiver players because there have been injuries in the NHL with this condensed schedule. And there's other teams in similar situations to Montreal. But one name that popped up today, Jesse, is former first-round pick, current Pittsburgh Penguin, former Nashville Predator, Philip Tomasino, among other players, among Gannett in Philadelphia, who was just acquired in a trade, I believe. But Philip Tomasino, this is the J Fresh card. You can see nothing standout. Time on ice of a fourth liner, but he can play center. Right now, he's been playing mostly wing. I wouldn't consider him a center, but 47th percentile in WAR. He doesn't take very many penalties. 56th percentile in goals. 50th percentile in primary assists. The dude is just an average player, and he's a fourth liner in the NHL. And that's kind of what Montreal needs in a way. Only 1.9 games so far with Pittsburgh, but last year, Jesse, 23 points in 50 games just with Pittsburgh, after only having 1 point in 11 games with Nashville. So on the whole, 61 games, 24 points, but just with Pittsburgh, he was on a near 40-point pace, right? A near 20 goal pace, which is pretty crazy. How you feel about a guy like Philip Tomasino, just a fourth line guy who could very well slot into the lineup, especially with some fans' concerns rising for guys like Joshua Waugh or Joe Veleno?
Philip Tomasino would not be the worst pickup for those reasons. You have to feel like you'd be able to offer. In fact, a lot of Habs fans are clamoring right now, looking for other options other than Veleno or Waugh right now. You have to feel like those players have had opportunities. And in Tomasino, we're looking at a guy like he's almost a half a point per game type of player. Mm-hmm. Now, again, like that's pretty good production. It maybe lends you to think of why he maybe got put on waivers when the production really isn't that bad. That what factors into that is the defensive game, maybe the reluctance to kind of play like that physical game. Mm-hmm. That being said, he likes to play off the rush. There's a lot of things that fit with Montreal, but that being said, we kind of want to shore up our defensive game and the physical side of things. So it's maybe as much as I do like the production, I'm just wondering what our depth could maybe offer. And I know Owen Beck hasn't had like, a gangbuster start in Laval Rocket this year, but I'm curious to see, like, again, Tomasino, judging by what happened with Beecher, probably going to get claimed before he comes to us. But again, I would be open to it, given that situation. Maybe give Beck a little bit more time. But Josh, like, we got depth with the Montreal Canadiens. albeit young depth. That's the thing. Like we're a really young team, so that's the thing right now. So maybe adding just a little bit more experience while we're allowing some of these guys to kind of mature and allow them to develop properly would maybe be a strong call over the long term. That being said, Josh, like I got faith in the guys that we're bringing up right now. Again, this team is deep, just a little bit young, but we're all growing together right
Yeah, and like I agree too. Like I don't even think Tomasino is going to fall to us because again, former first round pick. He's had a couple of seasons that were like around that half point per game. It's like he could probably work out somewhere. And while I do think he is an upgrade over a couple of players maybe right now on our roster, which naturally would be like, well, if we could just get him for free, that's great. Like $1.8 million salary. But I also agree it's like, you know, we do have guys that we can still try out. And anyway, well, it'll be up to Kent Hughes to see if this is the kind of move that we'll swing for. And let us know your thoughts on Tomasino down below. Is this the kind of thing you'd want to do? Or would it trade? Like maybe another one with Nashville. It feels like Nashville's all around this video, even though Tomasino's no longer there. But look, we got to go back to what Jeff Marek said just a couple days ago, right? And we talked about this before. There's been a lot of rumors about Stamkos, but a few days ago on Sekeres Price, Jeff Marek said, where could Stamkos end up? Make no mistake about it, Vancouver's a part of that conversation, as is Montreal, as are a number of teams. I don't know about full freight, but I know they're in the conversation there. And so, first off, again, he's not saying that there's a deal imminent or anything, right? He's just saying Montreal's in that conversation, as we should be. Now, Stammer this year, Jesse, has actually been relegated to a wing role. He doesn't even play center for them anymore. He's lost a step. 5 points in 20 games. He had a nice OT winner recently. Like, he's still got some flash in the game, playing almost 18 minutes a night. How are you feeling about Steven Stamkos? Because, I mean, Elliot Friedman even yesterday was saying, look, I think with Montreal, you're looking at who's a relatively inexpensive center. Aside from the fact they're looking at the Kadri types, all the Crosby rumors, who's somebody who's a stopgap. And Stamkos, maybe not so much a stopgap. Again, a bit of a big contract. But there is another guy in Nashville. But any quick thoughts on Stammer before we get to maybe the better target here?
I love to see again the reconnection of Friedman and Marek here, talking about the rumors around Montreal when it's coming to the centers right now. And again, like with Steven Stamkos, he hasn't had the best start to the season. Again, that 27 goals from last year, though, hard to ignore. Yeah. Again, for this Montreal Canadiens team, that connection with Martin St. Louis, even though I would prefer, somebody we're going to get into in just a second here, Ryan O'Reilly, like, it's hard to discount that connection between Martin St. Louis and Steven Stamkos. Like, the more I think about it, Josh, like, I could see it, in a certain type of way. Just a big thing here is this: we got to make sure that obviously as we're coming into the room here that, obviously that, Nick Suzuki is still feeling very comfortable in his place and we're not affecting the dynamics. I just feel like that's important to maybe bring up in all this. Maybe with Ryan O'Reilly, we're maybe getting a little bit less points, but I feel like it's just a better fit for the team, probably what we need a little bit more, still playing that center role, which is what we need more than anything else right now. But it's interesting, Josh. Like the more I think about it, the more it starts coming, more of kind of like a realistic opportunity here that the Nashville Predators have just had such a rough start to their season.
Like there might be like an urgency to just get off of his contract, right? And again, like the contract's not great, and it is a huge risk taking it on, especially for the production right now. I think there's a world where it could make sense, right? There's a bunch of factors that just kind of seem to point to like Steven Stamkos could really work in Montreal. But again, there's another name that I did want to bring up. And Mark Dumont, when recently writing about this in his article, which I will link down below, he mentions Ryan O'Reilly, right? And he says, look, this is maybe the better target. Right? Center Ryan O'Reilly continues to impress. He has great underlying numbers, 13 points in 20 games. Left-handed center, wins faceoffs, provides the type of veteran presence. He's kind of like a Crosby in that way. And we've talked about O'Reilly before. And this guy, to me, is a very reasonable target. And in this same article, Dumont mentions how a Nashville reporter at one point said that the theoretical return, again, there's been no like clear-cut conversations about O'Reilly because I think the Predators and Preds fans want to keep him definitely over Stamkos. But if he were to get moved, the Predators reporter said it would be similar to a Brock Nelson package. Now, that looked pretty rough when it first happened because Callum Ritchie is looking great and a first-round pick. But this is what we're talking, Jesse. I mean, if Montreal wants to take a swing at Ryan O'Reilly, we have the assets, a first-round pick, plus it's looking like either Xhekaj or Swarovski is what was suggested. I mean, is that maybe too much for you? I think at this point, still with Montreal being the youngest team in the league, still just trying to get a playoff spot, let alone make a push for a cup, it's maybe a steep price to pay this early still into the, later stages of the rebuild, but it's hard to ignore Ryan O'Reilly if he were ever to be made available by the Preds.
It's hard to ignore, but like with Alexander Swarovski, he's not playing as good as he is right now. I'm a lot more open to that.
Yeah.
If Michael Hage isn't as close to making his NHL debut, I'm more open to that. But again, because these players are so close to being NHL ready, I feel like I would be reluctant to pull the trigger on that, just feeling what they could really provide for this team long term. Still have to feel there would be other options. We still need to fix that 2C. It is very important, but I've just from what we're seeing from these players right now, I think it's just too much to maybe kind of pass up on for right now. But with Ryan O'Reilly, like we have to say, you could bank on, even as I'm getting a little bit older, a little bit longer in the tooth now, 50 to 60 points easily if he's coming throughout his career. Obviously, you can just bank on that. A tremendously reliable player. As long as he's healthy, he's going to be putting up points. You have to feel like he could probably get high 50s, close to 60s playing with the Montreal Canadiens, considering who we'd be playing with. There's also some rumors that Filip Forsberg might be available as well from the Nashville Predators. We're looking for a little bit more of a C, even though obviously we love the production that we would get from a Filip Forsberg. I think, from a centerman, it's a little bit more of what we need to stabilize this top six right now. It's an interesting one, Josh, because it's a young team that's shown a lot of promise. So you could say, it's okay, maybe we got enough good prospects. Let's trade one to really start getting into our competitive window. Now, that being said, it's like we're just so close. And if you feel like if you just wait a little bit, maybe we're still going to get in the playoffs this year, in my opinion. But then have Hage, all those years of what he could really do for the Montreal Canadiens, I think is of a lot of value to Kent Hughes, which is why I think he'll err on the side of caution. If there's any other ways, maybe another type of package he could get this done, I think he'll be looking at that.
Yeah, for sure. It's going to be a tough decision, right? I mean, when you're looking at the long-term future versus the short-term, like you want to win now. You don't want to waste the primes of Suzuki and Caufield. It's coming up now over the next few years. Yes, you have lots of young talent in Slav, in Hudson, and even Noah Dobson, who's about to hit his prime, I guess. Or like Demidov, like so many guys, right? Like Bolduc, right? Even Kirby to some extent. You have so many guys who are young, but also like you don't want to waste what you have. So it's going to be a tough decision for Kent Hughes. Let us know what you think. Stamkos, O'Reilly, Tomasino, any big trades coming on the horizon? We'd love to hear from you. That'll do it for this episode. And if you want to stay up to date on all the latest stuff just like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Thank you for tuning in every single day. Double check if you've clicked it, by the way. Over half of you still haven't. I'm Josh Gosse, my co-host Jesse Poirier. We'll get you in the next one.